This is the Strong is a Mindset podcast, episode number 117. If you're having a hard time breaking your habits, let's talk about why that is and what to do about it. This is the Strong is a Mindset podcast, where you'll learn how to build both a strong body and a strong mind by eating, moving, and thinking. I'm your host, physician, personal trainer, certified health coach, and certified life coach, Carrie Holland. Hey, how are you? What's new? What's good? So, what's good here? We are going to talk about why it is so hard to undo your habits. So if you've been around here at all, you know by now that I'm a huge habit nerd, and I really love getting into the nitty-gritty of habit change. I love getting specific, and this is one place where my obsession with details and minutia is helpful because I can take that love of details and apply it to your behaviors. And what I've noticed through helping loads of women change their habits is that they are often surprised by two things. So one, they are surprised by how long it takes, and two, they are surprised by how hard it is. So these are the two most common things that clients will tell me when we dive into the work of changing their habits. And I've got some thoughts about this that I want to share to give you some perspective. So I have some things for you to consider when you think about how hard it is to change your habits, okay? I have some ideas as to why this might be a challenge for you, and I want to offer you some ways to make this easier, okay? And the key thing to note here is this. If you want to change your habits, please understand that it is absolutely possible to do it. That is key. I want you to walk away understanding that while yes, habit change may be hard, two things are true. You can let habit change be hard, and you can make habit change easier on yourself. And I'm going to show you how to do this. All right, so let's go. So first, let's go back to basics here and remember the purpose of a habit, okay? And I think it's important to understand the purpose of habits before we go anywhere else because it makes understanding why habits are so hard to undo just a little easier. And it all goes back to your brain. So the purpose of a habit is for your brain to save energy. Your habit is a repeated, learned behavior that helps your brain stay efficient with little to no energy used. So habits are a huge win for your brain, okay? Because remember, your brain is lazy and it wants to conserve as much energy as possible. That is one of your brain's key features. So habits are the perfect answer to this because there is little to no thought involved. You're not thinking, you're just doing. It's 7:30 in the evening. Dinner is done. Kitchen's cleaned up. Everyone's showered, put on their PJs, and now you sink into the couch with a bowl of chips to end the day, just like you do every day. And this is an example from one of my clients. It's like clockwork. It's repeatable, it's predictable, and your brain has made it easy by putting this sequence of events on autopilot. There is probably little to no thinking about that order of events, and that's by design. And the point is, when you take a behavior that makes you feel good in the here and now, even if it's a habit that harms you in the long term, your brain takes note. And with time and repetition, the habit becomes automated, so you don't have to think about it and it's easy. And the result is that your chips on the couch habit becomes something you've been doing for years, if for no other reason than, well, that's just what I always do. And your brain gets what it wants with little to no energy expended. It's an efficient system. So habits create efficiency by reducing the amount of decisions that you have to make. When you don't have to think about what happens at 7:30 every night, you're saving your brain energy, you're being efficient, and your brain gets what it wants. It gets the chips without even having really to think. You're just grabbing the bowl, grabbing the chips, and the rest takes care of itself. No decisions are made. You don't have to think. And your brain does not care if this 7:30 chip habit is helping you or hurting you in the long run, because your brain only cares about the here and now. Your brain only cares that it feels good right now. So your brain does not care one bit that your 7:30 p.m. couch and potato chip habit is causing you to gain weight or it's contributing to you not being able to fit into your pants. Your brain does not care that the 7:30 bowl of chips also leads to chocolate and then some cookies and then some candy. Your brain does not care about what the long-term impact of that bowl of chips is. Your brain only sees that you feel better in the heat of the moment, and that's all that matters. I eat the chips now, and I feel better now. That's it. And because your brain is smart, it takes that information and it stores it away for later. Your brain stores that info as 7:30 p.m. chips on the couch equals I feel better, at least for the moment, which is all your brain cares about. And then tomorrow, when the evening rolls around and it's 7:30 again, you don't even have to think. You just grab the chips, head to the couch, eat, and zone out. no energy spent, you've got loads of brain energy conserved, and you have the short-term gratification of feeling better in the moment. Your brain saved you energy. It's being efficient by taking all thought out of the process. There is virtually little to no thinking involved because you're just doing. You're just eating. It is habit. Okay? So now, take what you know about habits and your brain, and let's just take it a step further. If your brain's primary goals are to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and expend as little energy as possible, and then you insert a behavior into the mix that can be put on repeat, like an evening potato chip habit, and that habit checks all three of those boxes for your brain's goals, what happens? Your brain holds onto it. That pattern becomes hardwired. It gets locked in. And that habit can stay hardwired in place for years. It can stay with you for decades. And I mention this specifically because if you ever get caught up in the question of why it takes so long to undo your habits, I would ask that you think about how long your habit has been around in the first place, okay? Because I'm going to bet a nickel that your habit has probably been around for quite some time. So as an example, say you are trying to undo your habit of emotional eating and you find yourself getting frustrated or even impatient because you feel like it's taking forever to stop that habit. And if that's the case for you, I would simply ask you to consider, okay, well, how long have I been doing this? And then be really honest with yourself when you answer. If you have been an emotional eater for decades, is it reasonable to expect that you would be done and over that habit within a few months? That after years and years of eating your emotions, that after a few months, that habit would be gone? So how realistic is that? And I know that's a hard question to ask, just as it's a hard question to answer. But I want to help you be realistic and have realistic expectations for your rate of change because it's often much slower than you anticipate. And another reason I'm asking you this is because I've been there. I've done that. And I've also thought, well, hey, I'm doing all this work. It's been a few months. Where the heck are my results? So I get it. It's frustrating when you're doing the work and it feels like it's taking forever. But here's an icky truth about habits. So while they can be sealed into your brain pretty quickly, it can take a long, long time for them to be undone because of what we just talked about. Your brain is lazy and it will always take the path of least resistance to get what it wants. Habits are your brain's path of least resistance. Okay? Really think about that. Sometimes it does not take much for a habit to become hardwired. For some people, it may only take a few nights of chocolate after a really bad day at work for a brand new end of workday chocolate habit to be born. If your brain gets pleasure from the behavior, it remembers that and makes a connection. It makes a connection that says, hey, end of day chocolate equals I feel better. And your brain will remind you of that every night on cue, and you will find yourself headed to the pantry for chocolate. Because once your brain makes that connection between a habit and the pleasure that it brings, it can be really hard to break. Okay? And my whole point for bringing this up is to simply say this. When it comes to changing your habits, like undoing emotional eating, which is a big one, most often these habits have been hardwired into your brain for a long honking time. We're talking years, if not decades. And that habit became hardwired into your brain in the first place because it brought you pleasure. It brought you relief. The habit took away, or at least briefly numbed, the frustration of a bad day at work. And your brain is not going to be super keen on giving up that chocolate because it knows the feel-good dopamine that comes from it. So your brain is going to be hard-pressed to forego that chocolate. So with time and repetition, that habit stays, and it can stay for years. So a few months of working on a habit, while it may seem like a long time, in the grand scheme of things, it's really not. If your habits have been with you for years, it's probably not realistic to expect that they go away after just a few months. It would be great if our brains worked that quickly to let go of a habit, but they don't. And it's frustrating, I know. Because your brain is smart, it's stealthy, and it's stubborn. So when you've got habits locked in, like your 4 o'clock cookie that you have every day to prepare you for the rest of the day when you go home and take off your work hat and put on your parent hat, as an example, when you have that habit locked in after decades of doing it, I promise you that your brain is going to fight you tooth and nail to hold on to that habit. Your brain wants that comfort. It craves the comfort of the cookie because it's equated a 4 o'clock cookie with calm or with I feel better. So as you can guess, it's going to take some time to undo that. And that is why it can feel like it's taking forever for your habits to change. For most of us, these habits have been around for decades. They provide comfort, they provide pleasure, and your brain is not going to want to just give that up. Okay? So now that we've talked a little bit about the purpose of habits, what function they serve for your brain, how they get wired in, and how they can take a long time to reverse, let's also talk about why it can be so hard to undo habits. So let's take into account what we've been talking about all along. Habits are your brain's way of conserving energy. They're economical and they're efficient. You do not have to think about them. And that last one is the big one, okay? That last one, that is the doozy right there. Habits are efficient because you don't have to think about them. And so, if you really want to pare it down, habits are hard to undo for this reason. When you're trying to break a habit, you're taking something that is on autopilot, something that you're not really thinking about at all, and now you are thinking really, really hard about it. So honestly, that is the challenge of habit change in a nutshell, right there. You are taking something that you normally do not think about at all, and then you're turning it all on its head and thinking really hard about it. And I really do believe that this is the hardest part of undoing habits. And I believe that this is where you get tripped up most often. At least this is true for me, and I've seen it be the case for most of my clients. So when you go and commit to doing the work of changing your habits, it quickly becomes a harsh reality that in order to succeed, you have to take something that you normally pay zero attention to and then practice giving it a whole lot of attention. And not just for a minute or a day or a month. It requires paying attention and giving a sustained effort over a prolonged period consistently, and that can get hard. So take it back to your nighttime chips on the couch habit. So by nature of it being habit, you're not thinking about it. You simply see it's 7:30. Everyone is done with activities and dinner. The night is winding down, and you head to the pantry, grab the chips, maybe a bowl on your way out of the kitchen, and you get to the couch. And you may wind up on the couch with half the bag of chips gone without even realizing it, because there is no thought. It's like an outside force acting on you, even though you're the one going through the motions. It's exactly that. You're going through the motions. And this comes up often, frequently when I'm coaching clients through their habits and they tell me they keep doing things like eating chocolate or grabbing chips or flipping on their phones when they don't want to be. I will ask them to tell me what's going on in their minds when these habits are happening. And do you know what the most common response is that I get to this question? I don't know. I wasn't thinking. And there it is. That's the problem. If your answer is, I wasn't thinking, then that's where your work is. Because to unwind whatever habit it is that you're looking to break, you're going to need to devote some energy and thought to it. Because habit change is all about awareness. I will be so bold and make the claim that you cannot change your habits without awareness. It just doesn't work that way. If you want to get to somewhere different, you have to know where you're starting from on the map, right? You have to know where you are now in order to get to where you want to be. And that means awareness. But what exactly does that mean? So I use the word awareness a lot when I'm talking about habit change. But what exactly does that mean? It means you pay attention and understand that something is happening, okay? It means you talk to yourself very intentionally. It means you listen closely to your self-talk and you pay attention to the sentences that are scrolling through your brain because you're going to need to work on those sentences in order to change your habits. It means that you are on to yourself. So I've used this terminology before, and it most definitely applies here. You've got to know yourself well enough, and you need to know your habits so that you can start undoing them. If you know that you have a 7:30 p.m. chip and couch habit, I would encourage you to start talking to yourself before 7:30 rolls around. Because that time, 7:30, that's your cue. When everything at home is settled and everyone's cleaned up and calming down for the night, there it is. There's your cue. And when you're undoing your habit and practicing being onto yourself, the self-talk starts before you encounter the cue. So if that means as you're shutting down the kitchen, the process starts, then that's what you do. You start talking to yourself. And that self-talk can look something like, okay, this is normally the time that I would be headed to the pantry to grab the chips. But today, I am not doing that. Today, I walk away. And then you keep talking to yourself because as soon as you make this decision and tell yourself, hey, I'm not having the chips, I can almost certainly guarantee you that your brain is going to freak out on you. Remember, your brain has equated chips and TV with comfort. Chips equals feel better, at least in the short term. But when you're practicing being onto yourself, you're one step ahead. and you talk to yourself and you remind yourself that even though the chips make you feel better for a hot second, in the long run, it really does not help you at all. And when your brain keeps going and says, but you've earned this, it's been a long day. Or if your brain says, hold up, this is what you always do. Or come on, just have the chips and start over again tomorrow. Whatever it is that your brain offers up as a justification, you don't stop there. And I cannot tell you how essential this is. A large part of the work of undoing your habits is going to be managing and handling your justifications. But again, what has to happen in order for you to do this? You pay attention. Okay? In order to manage justifications, you've got to find them. And in order to find them, you have to be looking for them. And you have to be ready for them. And you have to be ready to debate those justifications when they do come up. Because remember what I said earlier, your brain is sneaky and it's stealthy. So when it doesn't see those chips, your brain will play dirty. And your brain will offer up any and every justification you can imagine so that you hurry up and grab the chips already. And if you're not prepared for that, it will be super easy to just accept whatever justification comes up and eat the chips. If you're not ready for it, you might find yourself agreeing and saying to yourself, you know what? Yeah, this has been a bad day. I did earn these chips. Or you might tell yourself, these chips, right? They're not a big deal. It's not going to matter if I eat them. This isn't going to amount to anything. So I want you to be ready for that. Okay? I want you to be ready for your brain to wig out on you. I want you to be ready for those justifications to surface. And most importantly, I want you to be ready to go to bat with those justifications and not just sit back and accept them as fact. And all of this requires energy. This right here is where the work is. This is why it can feel really hard to undo your habits. There is, in fact, a lot of energy required to do this work. This stuff is not for the faint of heart, okay? Personal growth and change, it is not for the faint of heart. So if I'm being fully honest, it's not going to feel great, okay? I'm not going to lie and tell you that this is easy. I'm not going to tell you this isn't hard because the truth is that habit change can be hard. I want you to know what you're signing up for because your brain is insanely powerful. And you know this already, but even though it might seem as easy as just saying no and staying out of the kitchen and walking past the pantry instead of stopping for the chips, you know that it is just not that easy. And where you might find yourself getting stuck is by repeatedly telling yourself, I just need to do it. I just need to do it. And while yes, there is truth to that, you do just need to do it, there is a whole lot more to it than that. So think about it. When you're trying to stop a habit, how many times have you told yourself, I just need to do it, only to not follow through? It is true for so many of us. But why? Because your actions and your thoughts have to match up, okay? This is essential. Remember a key feature of habit change. Positive thoughts drive positive action. Negative thoughts drive negative action. So it all needs to match up. I say this all the time, and it's the truth. You cannot beat yourself up into your next best version. Okay? And what that means is that you generally don't find yourself doing positive things for yourself when your thoughts don't support it. It's hard to say no to cookies at the end of a hard day when your inner dialogue is not supportive. It's going to be an uphill battle to say no to the cookies when you're telling yourself, this is impossible. There's no way this is going to work. I can't change. These cookies don't matter. This isn't enough. I'm not enough. It doesn't match up. So, do you see the connection here? In order for your actions to change, the thoughts about yourself and about your habits also have to change. Your actions will change when you do the work of unraveling the limiting beliefs that are keeping you stuck in the first place. That is the order of operations right there. Thinking comes first. Acting comes after. You have to think and believe that you have the capacity for change, and you have to tell yourself that constantly. And then you go and prove it to yourself by taking action. You tell yourself that it is possible for you to skip mindless eating at the end of the day, and you actually believe it. And then you take action and prove that thought true by skipping the chips at 7:30, even if it feels new and different and hard. And how do you remember to do all this? By paying attention. You put in the work. So whenever your negative thoughts come up, or whenever you feel yourself going down the negative spiral of this isn't working, this doesn't matter, I can't do this, you have to actively work to flip that script. Keyword, active. And this is no joke, okay? This takes serious, hard work. I've said it many times before, but it's worth repeating. Changing your habits is very much an active, engaged process. There is a serious investment of your time, patience, and energy that's necessary if you want to see real, long-lasting habit change. And not everyone is willing to do that. But if you are truly committed to doing the work of changing your habits, you will succeed when you invest the energy and the effort to get into your brain, observe what's going on, and talk yourself through it. So that is the work right there. And really, no matter which way you slice it, what it boils down to is this. In order to change your habits, you have to think about your thinking. In fact, you have to think about it a lot. It's more than just taking action. This is not telling yourself, I just need to do it. No, that unfortunately is not enough. Instead, you have to be willing to get inside your brain and pay attention to yourself and your self-talk and change that self-talk in order to write a different ending to your nightly routine so that it does not end in a bag of chips. Okay? And if that sounds daunting, I get it. Sometimes it's easier to try to strong-arm yourself into doing. Sometimes you think it's easier to take action and do than it is to think. But that's skipping an important step. And your brain is not going to let you squeak by and take different action without thinking first. Your brain is not going to let you off that easy. And so here's something to consider. Your brain is going to think for you whether you control it or not. And what that means is that if left unattended, your brain is going to go to the default, at which point you will find yourself standing in front of your freezer with a pint of ice cream, spoon in hand after a bad day, because that's what you've always done. If you don't control your thinking, your brain will do what it's always done because it's easy, it's familiar, and it's comfortable. So controlling your brain runs directly counter to what a habit is, right? Because when you're operating under habit, your brain is driving the bus and you're the passenger. You're operating on autopilot. But when you're trying to undo your habit, you are driving the bus. It's your conscious thoughts that have to be in charge. So if you want to change the default to come off autopilot and create a new habit for yourself, you have to manage your brain. You have to practice controlling your brain and controlling your thoughts to make them productive. You have to practice thinking in a way that results in you not eating the ice cream or not sitting on the couch with a bag of chips just because it's 7:30 and that's what you do. So if you're considering changing your habits, I'm going to hazard a guess it's because you know what your default is and you want to change it. Maybe you're tired of it. Maybe you're tired of ending the day stuffed full of chips or ice cream when you weren't even hungry for either in the first place. Maybe you're tired of telling yourself, today is the day that I won't stand in front of the pantry eating my kids' candy, only to wind up doing exactly that because it feels so out of control. Whatever it is, I'm going to guess that you're tired of it and you want different for yourself. And you can have different. You do not have to end your day feeling defeated by your habits. But I want you to be ready and have an understanding of what it's going to take. And it's going to take a whole lot of awareness, patience, practice, and consistency. And also straight up grit to keep coming back and trying again, even when you fail. And you can decide to let this be really hard, or you can decide to let this be both hard and easy. So you get to choose how to think about changing your habits. I've mentioned this before, I'll say it again here, and I will keep saying it as often as I need to, but you've always got a choice. You get to choose how you think as you do the legit, serious work of changing your life. You can choose to think that this is taking forever. You can choose to think, man, this is too hard. And you can choose to see this as an uphill battle. You can certainly choose to think all of those things. But if you do choose to think that way, I would simply ask, how does that help you? And how does it feel to think that way? And that's just it. How does it feel to be reminding yourself constantly that changing your habits is so hard? Probably not very good, right? It feels pretty disempowering to remind yourself how hard it is to stop your emotional eating every time you practice saying no to chocolate at the end of a long workday. So instead, I'm encouraging you to decide for yourself how you want to think about changing your habits. And I want to make something clear. There is a big difference between acknowledging something versus letting it control you. And I think that's where I've gotten tripped up and where I've seen my clients get tripped up. So I want you to feel free and empowered to acknowledge that what you're doing is hard, okay? I don't want you to deny that the work of changing your habits is hard. So acknowledge it and give yourself space to feel the frustration that comes up when you struggle to stop emotionally eating or mindless eating or whatever habit it is you're trying to stop. But at the same time, don't over-identify with it, because then that's when you risk letting the difficulty of this work control you. Don't let the difficulty of this work grow to the point that it has a hold over you and becomes a big, insurmountable task. That's when you've let the process overtake you. And that's when hard becomes your narrative. So acknowledge it. Yes, changing your habits is legit, real, hard work. But at the same time, don't make it so hard that you keep spinning in circles every time you mess up. Because remember, you are most definitely going to mess up on your way to changing your habits. So instead, you can decide for yourself that yes, changing your habits is hard, and despite that, you can do it. Decide for yourself that you are capable of taking on this work. Decide for yourself that you can do hard stuff and change your default, that you can be successful. Let the work be hard. Let the practice of changing your habits be hard, but then also practice letting the recovery from your mess ups be easy. Okay? Really think about that for a minute. Let the work be what it is. Let it be challenging. Believe that you are up for the challenge. Okay? And then let the mess ups happen because they most definitely will. And decide in advance that you are not going to make any one mess up define you. You are not going to let any one night of chips on the couch when you plan to have none mean anything about you. You don't let it stop you. You get up, you keep on with your life, and you decide right then and there after you've eaten the chips or finished the ice cream or downed the chocolate that the next decision you make will be different. Okay? You don't perseverate. You don't spiral out and go down a rabbit hole just because you ate some ice cream or chocolate at the end of a rough day when you're trying to give up emotional eating. So you do both. Let it be hard and let it be easy. Okay? Two things are true here. I know it might sound funny to say it that way, let it be hard and let it be easy, but I really do think that there is duality to undoing your habits, and this is it. You know that signing up to change your habits is a serious undertaking, but I want you to believe in yourself, your capacity to do hard things, and your ability to stick with it, even when you mess up. If you practice this, you will change your habits, and you'll change your life. All right? And if you want help with this, let's go. When you coach with me, I will walk you through the challenge of changing your habits, starting with your self-talk, because thoughts are habit too. Check out my website, go to www.carriehollandmd.com/contact and send me a message so we can talk about how changing your habits will change your life. All right? Thank you again for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you again next week. Hey, if you're looking for your next great read, I've got you covered. Head over to carriehollandmd.com/books and download my list of most favorite reads. I've got 2 collections waiting for you. One is all about work-life balance. The other is a collection of books that have changed my life. I've referenced many of these books in the podcast, and now you can access those titles all in one place. Again, that's carriehollandmd.com/books. Check it out and find your next great read. Thank you for listening to the Strong is a Mindset podcast. If you want to learn more about how to build both a strong mind and a strong body by eating, moving, and most importantly, thinking, check out carriehollandmd.com.